In this report, I will explain the real reasons Americans retire in the Philippines while I show you video I took while living in the Philippines. Based upon most videos, you would think people retire in the Philippines because of the beautiful, friendly locals and the gorgeous natural scenery. Well, that's what reels them in, but a few other things make them stay. Once people get here, many just fall in love with the place and decide they want to stay. They start talking to other expats, and they quickly realize they don't have to leave. I only remembered this secret, larger reason when I received an email from one of you today. You see, we fell in love with the Philippines and didn't want to leave, so we had to find a way to stay that didn't involve retirement visas. And the email I received reminded me of this. For privacy reasons, I'll say that Joe sent me the email. Joe explains that he only receives around $1,800 US per month in Social Security. Yet he sees all these videos on YouTube about people living on less than $1,500 in many countries around the world. So Joe checked online and learned that many countries have a minimum pension people must have to qualify for a retirement visa around the world. And his email suggested a conflict there. Many countries require retirement pensions in excess of the $1,800 per month. So he's asking, how do all these people with low pensions get their retirement visas around the world? That question's what reminded me to share this idea with you today. Joe writes, so my real question is it realistic to think I can retire overseas, taking into account that many countries require more monthly pension income than $1,800 to qualify for residency in those countries? So Joe's pension is around $1,800 per month, but all he receives after paying his Medicare Part B is around $1,500 per month. Plus he has virtually no retirement nest egg. So how can he qualify for a retirement visa in whatever country with such a low income and virtually no retirement savings when many countries require more monthly income or savings to issue a retirement visa? Great question. I forgot how much I've learned over the years until someone asks such a great question like this. Without the great questions we receive from you guys, it never occurs to us to share how we think about things after 17 years living overseas. We forget what we learned along the way that you guys haven't heard about yet, so here it goes. Joe has two other problems hidden in his question that you also need to hear about that I will talk about next. But first, I want to answer the question Joe is asking. But the idea I'm sharing is not limited to the Philippines. The concept I'm about to share applies to most retire cheap in paradise countries around the world, not just the Philippines. So how do I get a retirement visa with such a low pension income? Let me start by explaining. Joe might be asking the wrong question. I'm not faulting him for asking the wrong question. I did the same thing 15 years ago when I first went to the Philippines. I researched the Philippines retirement visa before I flew over there 15 years ago for the first time. But I decided to go to the Philippines anyway, even though I didn't like the terms of the retirement visa. But I've learned over and over again in many countries, there is more than one way to stay in a country than a retirement visa. But you often don't learn about the tricks until you get your feet on the ground and meet the expats that know the tricks in each country. But even if it turned out there were no tricks in the Philippines, I was determined to see the Philippines anyway. Traveling to beautiful places is what I like to do. Now, I'm going to talk about the Philippines as I answer Joe's question, but this discussion applies to many other countries in the world. If you go to the Philippines Embassy webpage in your home country, you'll find the retirement visa incomes that someone from your country needs to get a retirement visa in the Philippines. If you were Joe or me, you would read that if you are 50 years old, you'll still need to either make a big cash deposit and show a minimum monthly pension, or make an even bigger cash deposit with no proof of pension to get a retirement visa in the Philippines. But most expats stay in the Philippines legally, no matter their age, without fulfilling any of those requirements. But if the Philippines or any other country is your favorite country in the world to retire, you need to start asking a different question. So what is it? What is the right question to ask? The visa question you should be asking is this: what is the easiest way to legally stay in the Philippines long-term with as little money or hassle as possible. For many of you, it will be the retirement visa in whatever country you want to retire. There's nothing wrong with that if you qualify and you want to give them your money. But for me, it would not be the retirement visa if I decided to retire in the Philippines. I prefer not to deposit large sums of money in foreign banks. I have read too many stories about delays and complications when people try to get retirement deposits back around the world when they later decide to move to another country. So we flew into the Philippines on a tourist visa. They gave us a 30-day visa upon arrival. We had heard that we could extend the tourist visa by 30 days by paying a small extension fee. That's all we knew when we landed in the Philippines. We were having a great time in the Philippines, so decided to stay to get the 30-day extension. When the extension was running out, we learned from an American expat that we could keep extending it for up to 36 months before we would have to leave the Philippines. One of our neighbors, an American, explained how he had been living in the Philippines for 5 years without a retirement visa. He just extends his tourist visa 36 times. He said mostly the Americans he knows don't bother with a retirement visa. They just get extensions for 36 months. At the end of 36 months, you just do a visa run to another country and come back and start the clock all over again for 36 more months. Now that was a tune I could dance to happily. So the right question to ask for many countries is, what is the easiest way to legally stay in the country long-term with as little money or hassle as possible? But you also have to ask the right people the right question. And the people to ask are the expats living on the ground in that country when you visit. The real reason Americans retire in the Philippines. So many Americans retire in the Philippines just because it's easier than in other countries. They don't need to provide any evidence of a pension or make any deposits in the Philippines banks. Many people come to the Philippines and fall in love with the natural beauty, the white sand beaches, the lovely local smiles, and the low cost of living. But they stay because the Philippines government lets them stay without creating a bunch of silly requirements or unnecessary paperwork. So people stay in the Philippines on tourist extensions. So people who come to the Philippines for the beautiful people and scenery stay because they feel welcome by a government that appreciates them. The Philippines government is smart. They know that average American pensioner is making about 3 times what the average local family earns in the Philippines, so they welcome us with open arms and smiles. So expats they let in from all over the world, not just Americans, on average spend 2 to 3 times more than the average locals, so that foreign money helps support the local business and economy by allowing us to stay longer. You can stay up to 36 months on tourist extensions. Then you just do a visa run to another country like Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, or your home country, then return for the next 36 months as a tourist. Easy peasy retirement life. There's another reason Joe needs to chill out about getting a retirement visa so soon. After 18 months, he may find out about an amazing place somewhere else in the world that he wants to move to. So does he make another deposit and get another retirement visa in the new country before he arrives? No. You need to think of the world more like a bunch of countries that you're going to date for a few months or a few years until you find and fall in love with the one country where you want to live happily ever after. Just take life easy peasy until you have lived somewhere long enough to know you will never ever leave, except maybe visit family. By that time, you'll know the easiest way to live there for as long as you want with all the limitations you have, including your budget. Almost all countries have other visa solutions. You might be asking the wrong questions in other countries too. I have a friend who spends most of the year in Thailand, but he's too young to get a retirement visa. He makes incredible money online with a few businesses he owns, and he loves to travel the world, but he loves Thailand the most. He's also very smart and frugal. He got tired of doing monthly visa runs about 5 years ago, so he started asking the right question. How do I stay in Thailand for as long as I want without doing visa runs? He found an answer. He applied to a school in Thailand to learn how to speak Thai. He now studies Thai a few hours per week on a student visa. He can take Thai kickboxing once he learns Thai fluently. Just start asking the right questions, and you can probably avoid most, if not all, of the hassles and paperwork in most of the countries around the world. Be creative. One of Chung's model friends from Eastern Europe stayed in Malaysia for a decade on a student visa. Now she's living in New Zealand on a student visa. But there are many other kinds of visas around the world than retirement and tourist visas. There are business visas, religious visas, charity work, and many others. And after a few years, you may fall in love, marry a local, and get a marriage visa. I have another report that explains why you should not be trying to get a retirement visa right away, even if you easily qualify. Just click the link in the notes below this video, and these links will be there. Now, I promised to talk about 2 other problems hidden in Joe's question about how to get a retirement visa on a low pension. But first, I want to talk about other wrong questions that many new and experienced expats are asking. Here's one. Can I buy real estate in this country? One of the things we learned growing up is that it is smarter to own our home than to rent. My mother used to say, you don't want to throw rent out the window, do you? In fact, nobody ever told me it is better to be a renter, but I want to throw some cold water in your face on this subject. You see, I agree that you should buy your home in your home country when you're young. You know the laws there. You know all the right questions to ask, or people that care about you can help you ask the right questions. But once we leave our home country, we are naive. We're not stupid. We may even have a genius level IQ, but the truth is, we just don't know the rules of the game outside our home country, do we? We are naive. Once we leave our home country, we're not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy. So we need advice from people that know the laws and history in foreign countries. But most of us don't have trusted family and friends outside our home countries. So is it okay to trust strangers in a foreign country with our life savings? There are companies out there that share cost of living data online about the best places to retire cheap in the world. They spend a bunch of time talking to you about how you need to buy real estate in foreign countries. They explain how it might be the best investment of your life. They'll argue that buying will freeze your living costs so you won't have any problems with inflation as you age. But do these strangers in foreign countries have a conflict of interest with you? I've heard that some of them are getting kickbacks if you buy real estate they're promoting. I'm not telling you what to do. I just think you should read my report about why retiree expats should not buy real estate overseas before spending months or years living there. Link provided. Okay, I promised to discuss the other hidden problem in Joe's question at the end of this report. So here it goes. Hidden problem in Joe's question. Joe said he has $1,500 per month he wants to use to live happily ever after in some country on a retirement visa and never leave. He also mentions that he has U.S. Medicare health insurance. So what happens when he gets old and needs some expensive health care treatment? He has Medicare, so he can fly home and get treated. Hopefully he has a friend or family with a couch he can sleep on for a few months while he recovers. But Joe also says he has virtually no retirement nest egg. What happens to Joe if he rents a scooter somewhere in Southeast Asia and gets a broken leg? What if he's injured in some emergency and he can't fly home for treatment? What if he has a heart attack or stroke and is rushed to the hospital? And many of these retired cheap in paradise countries around the world, they'll be able to provide some sort of emergency treatment to save him if he gets to the hospital on time. But how will he pay for the services? Will they require a deposit from him up front before they treat him? It is true that the costs can be as much as 80% cheaper in some of these countries than they would be in the USA, but you do need money for these and other emergencies. I cover these questions and others in another report I have called The 2 Biggest Risks of Retiring Cheap Overseas, link provided. Finally, while you're at it, you should read my report, Top 10 Mistakes International Retirees Make, the link provided. I don't want to temper your excitement about enjoying the world in retirement. I just want to load your gun with ideas that will help you avoid many of the mistakes I have made while traveling the world for the last 17 years. Okay, thanks for reviewing this report, The Real Reasons Americans Retire in the Philippines. Make sure to grab a copy of my free ebook, How I Fired My Boss and Traveled the World for 17 Years.